begin to share some things about yourself, and somehow the conversation gets interrupted. And before you know it, the person you were talking to is talking to someone else, and you never finish. You kind of think, well, surely that person will come back over and finish the conversation. But it doesn't always happen. It leaves you with a feeling of being uninteresting, unheard, and devalued. When someone listens to you, you right away feel cared about. You feel validated. You feel interesting, and you feel likable. Even though you may be a mature adult, these feelings are real as they were when you were just a child. And it always amazes me how this one skill is so important in our everyday relationships. We all want to be heard, but we also all need to listen. As parents, when your children are small, it's so easy to halfway listen to your child. Before they learn to talk, you just can't wait to hear their little voices. And then they seem to go through a stage where they won't stop talking and asking questions. So then you find yourself saying, could you please stop talking for just a few minutes and give mommy just a little rest? I'm sure we've both done that, Steve. I know that I was in Walmart the other day, and it seems like I'm always in Walmart where I get these perfect examples of the child-parent reaction to each other. But my heart just ached because, sometimes parents, like I just said, sometimes we just get really tired of hearing that little voice, but we don't mean anything by it. But this parent, there was a child that just kept on whining and saying, mommy this, mommy that, mommy this, mommy that. And all of a sudden, the mom just turned around and said, I don't want to hear you say my name again unless someone is about to grab you.
Oh, jeez.
And I just hurt when I heard that. Because, these are harsh things to say to a child. And I was just thinking, how in the world did that little child feel at that point? Of course they felt not validated for sure. And, it's probably a communication they're pretty used to listening to. But we really do need to think about how we sound. When we're talking with our children, we need to let them finish talking without cutting them off. And we as parents need to respect the time that they want to share with us just as much as when we want to talk to them. Because our little people are learning how to communicate by how we react to them. So you have to ask yourself, do we listen when they speak? Do we seem interested in what they're saying to us? Do they feel cared about while we're listening, or are we doing something that is more important while they're talking to us? These are crucial learning times. Unfortunately, it's hard to see it when you're in the middle of raising children because your life is so busy. But you do get a second chance with your grandchildren. You have more time. You listen to every word they say. You laugh with everything they say. You tell them how much you love them, and you just get hugs and kisses, and you don't mind playing another board game, even if it's the 20th time. Everything is just different when you're a grandparent. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful being with the grandparents and being with the grandparents.
Being with the grandchildren.
Yeah, no, I'd rather be with my grandkids, not the grandparents. That's true there. I'm sorry. Yeah. No, what you're saying is right, Donna. This whole conversation that we're having right now, though, on listening, I didn't point out, but your show that you did, which was your first show, which was episode 53, back in February, when you were moved to want to talk on the show about the functional family versus the dysfunctional family. And I like that because you just came up and had a really positive way to get started with what you're doing. You said everybody's talking about everything that's dysfunctional, but maybe we just need to talk about what the functional family should look like, and then they start to model it. I come back to that because a lot of people don't want to listen to anybody else. That's kind of what you're saying here. But there's a lot that people can learn from listening to the right people. And that's important, who you listen to. But I just wanted to interrupt you for a second to let you know that, to let the listeners know that episode 53 was Donna's first show. And I want to tell you that this is the 82nd show on Right Thinking with Steve Coplon. And that show is rated as the #1 most listened to show. And so maybe in the near future, Donna will be the host and I'll just be the guest every now and then because people like you, Donna. I'm glad. But yeah, in regard to grandchildren, you know, it's hard when you see a tired parent not having the patience to give the grandchild or their children, whether it's our own children or anybody else, proper attitude. And I encourage everybody to go back to Donna's show, episode 53, The Functional Family and Positive Model, because she said it all started with respect. And today's show is a follow-up of some of the more detailed things that we need to do to create a healthy family. And so we're going into that one specific area of listening as part of, it's part of respect. You respect when you listen properly. But no, that's why we're here today. We're just trying to help people put a little more thought into things that they may not have had the time to think about. So that's my 2 cents.
It's exactly right, because as you know, when you're a young parent and you're so busy, you're raising your children, you're working, you're doing all the responsibilities you need to do. There's so many things that you just don't pay attention to because you don't have time. But as grandparents, you have lots more time, and you notice things that you would have never noticed when you're raising your children. So I just, I'm not a professional at all, but I'm a loving, observant grandmother and person in the community, and I just pay attention, and I've noticed just the interactions in families. And if I can say anything that would help someone just feel a little bit better, or just a little advice that they could take the time to take, that I feel like that's what God wants me to do. So I just reemphasize how blessed we are that we have such beautiful grandchildren and children, and each one of them have their own personality that's being molded into the little person that they're going to be. And, I just thank God that we get to be a part of their lives to help them in these little small ways and to influence them by listening to them, showing interest in them and other children, being patient and giving them attention to set a good example of communication, because this is when they're learning how to communicate at home and when they're visiting, because when they go to school, they're learning how to communicate in their little classrooms. And so I was just telling my son the other day how crucial it is to stay connected as a family. They have to keep up with what's going on in their community and the schools. And I was talking to him about this because he works so hard and he has 3 children, and he's just completely worn out all the time. And he has a tendency to say, well, Mom, if it's not bothering me and my family, I don't really need to worry about it. But I was trying to get across to him the world, the world views are something you do have to pay attention to, because our children are in school, they're in the community, they're in the sports, and they're out in the world, and we have to teach them in the family, individual family, good morals, good values, so that they feel secure in their home. So when they're outside of the home, if they're up against something that maybe they don't believe in, they've got their foundation at home to help them get through whatever their struggle is. And so he listened. I pray for my family, our family. I pray for our kids, the marriages, and each one of our children, because it's not easy, in this world, raising children. in this world. So I want to go back to the statement that I made earlier about listening being a lost skill. As I said, I was focusing on what is going, as I said, talking about the lost skill. I was focusing one day on what is being presented on television alone. There used to be a time when a talk show came on with a guest and a person was informative, interesting, had a story maybe you could relate to, and then the host of the show would ask questions, and then sometimes the audience could ask questions. And by the end of the show, you felt inspired, you felt encouraged, you felt more knowledgeable, time well spent by listening to the person. But in today's media, the talk shows are made up of a panel of people that constantly give their strong opinions about every subject there is, arguing their points, blaming others, negative statements, and belittling others, and no one agrees on anything. If you're a viewer, a listener, watching by the end of the show, which I normally don't watch these shows all the way through, I just get a little drift and then it gets turned off, it makes you feel upset. You get angry, you get frustrated, and time gets wasted. So what I'm noticing in the world, and this is just because I'm paying attention, and a lot of people, like my kids, they're too busy, is there's a lot of talking and a lot of telling, and nobody is listening to each other. The negative messages are being broadcast across our TVs and social media, and in my opinion, the only way it will stop is if we stop listening. And this is a point when we kind of want to go the other direction. Sometimes we have to stop listening if it's something that's not a good message for ourselves and our family. So we just need to just turn it off and surround ourselves and our families with good things. And for me, this is just where I bring in my spiritual side of my life and bring in the fruits of the Spirit, which is love, peace, joy, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, patience, and self-control. And there's a verse in the Bible. Now this was all in Galatians, but there is a verse in the Bible in the book of James, James 1:19. And it's, let every person be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. It doesn't say slow to listen, quick to speak, quick to anger. James is telling us in the scripture that we are to listen first. Be aware of listening before you start talking. If we begin to talk too quickly, we may miss something. Just like when we're listening to God tell us something. If we just pray about a problem and focus on what we want God to do, but never stop to listen to what he's saying, we may miss the blessing because we didn't hear his will, just our will. So as we're out and about and involved in conversations with people and are paying attention, let's just stop and think about how much are we listening? How much are we talking? And then the last part of this verse is slow to become angry, for a man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. So we're not supposed to get involved in an argument because someone doesn't agree. I think you just mentioned that in one of those readings. Or if somebody doesn't agree with us or our viewpoint, it's not validated. Or if it's not validated, because that becomes selfish anger, and selfish anger doesn't help anyone. So my point is, just be aware of how we speak to people. I mean, none of us have got it perfectly right. Some of us may listen too much and never make a comment. Some of us may not listen and completely talk over someone and